The story begins at about 8 o'clock on Good Friday, April 12, 1968, when newly engaged couple, an Army corporal and his 22-year-old fiancée, were traveling to Riversdale from Pretoria to visit her parents and discuss their wedding plans. While she was sleeping, the Volkswagen Beetle was veered off course by a strong gust of wind. He lost control of the vehicle and the car overturned near the Barandas turnoff around 20 kilometers from the town of Uniondale. She fell out and ended up in a ditch along the road. She died instantly, but some say she is still trying to get home. He survived the accident but was seriously injured. He was very confused and could not find her in the dark. A passing motorist picked him up and took him to hospital. Another motorist later found her body at the overturned Beetle. He picked up her ID booklet, a little change, and her handkerchief. He recalled that her facial expression was happy, like an angel's, and like someone who had complete peace with herself. She was buried shortly afterward in the cemetery in Riversdale, where her grave can still be found today. He married another woman 1 year after the tragic accident. Some say this is why her spirit became restless, the fact that her fiancé had found love in the arms of another woman. Others say that since she was sleeping at the time of the accident, she did not know she had died and is still searching for her fiancé or a way back home to discuss her exciting wedding plans with her parents. According to her brother, his sister rested in peace until 1973, when a man from Craddock and his wife were driving on that same road around midnight when they spotted a girl in a long white gown. She was standing on a stormwater drain, said the wife. She didn't look human. I could see through her. Apparently, when they stopped to pick her up, she disappeared. When we heard about it again, the story was on a radio talk show. After that, everyone apparently encountered her, and it has been that way for 35 years now. The most notable recorded sighting of a young woman matching her description was made on the cold, rainy evening of May 1, 1976. When a man was driving his Mercedes on the Uniondale-Willowmore Road near the tiny town of Uniondale. I saw a girl standing at the side of the road, he recalled. I stopped. She opened the door and got in. I asked where she wanted to go and she said Porter Street 2, DeLang. She was dark-haired with a pale face, dressed in a dark coat and slacks. After a few miles, I turned my head and she was gone. Puzzled, the man drove into Uniondale, reported the incident to the sergeant on duty, then resumed his journey. Just outside Uniondale, I heard the most chilling sound I've ever heard in my life, he remembered. To this day I can't tell you if it was a laugh or a scream. It was right in the car, really loud, although I was absolutely alone. Terrified, the man sped back to Uniondale, where he and the sergeant searched the car, finding no trace of the girl. The man again set off, the sergeant following him in his police van. Just outside Uniondale, while I was driving at a steady 43 miles per hour, the right rear door of my car slowly opened and closed, said the man. It was a controlled, gentle opening and closing, exactly as if someone got out and then shut the door behind them, the sergeant remembered. The man drove through a patch of mist and about 200 yards beyond the mist. I saw the right rear door slowly open and close as if somebody got out, rattled from the experience, the sergeant returned to the police station, locked up for the night, and went home. For the sergeant, the description given of the girl had stirred some unsettling memories. At about 8 a.m. the next morning, the sergeant confronted another police sergeant and asked him if he remembered the girl that was killed in the car accident a few years ago. The other sergeant was the first officer to the scene of the accident that day. He recalls, "I found a Volkswagen Beetle off the road, and a girl was lying on her back with her head against the embankment. She had died of head injuries." There were no more sightings of her until 2 years later, on Easter weekend 1978. Army Corporal was doing his national service at Outshorn Army Base 100 miles from Uniondale. He was on his way there to spend the holidays with his girlfriend. His journey took him along the N9. When I reached the intersection, I saw somebody standing on the side of the road. Just as I turned to the right, she kind of lifted her arms up like, "Oh no, aren't you going to stop?" He recalls. He stopped his motorcycle and offered a lift to the young woman with dark hair and dark clothing. She climbed on, putting his spare helmet on her head and an earpiece in for some music. He stopped his motorcycle and offered a lift to the young woman with dark hair and dark clothing. She climbed on, putting his spare helmet on her head and an earpiece in for some music. I turned around. I wanted to see if I still had someone with me. There was nobody. I turned around, went back with the motorcycle to see if there was anybody lying along the road. I saw the spare helmet was back on my luggage rack. Then I just had to move off, because I realized then that I didn't actually pick somebody up. He was badly shaken. Not knowing what could have happened to the girl, he fled to the safety of Uniondale. According to a journalist, he also said she was a shortish girl, short dark hair, brunette, and she had slacks on and a jersey. He didn't think there was something wrong at the time. He didn't notice that it was a spirit. But it did feel strange. On Good Friday 1980, a motorcyclist had a terrifying experience while riding along the N9 past Uniondale looking for a friend who he thought might have run out of petrol in the desert. All of a sudden I felt hands around my waist. I could actually feel the pressure, and as I looked down I saw the hands. I was very scared. That is when I accelerated. She gave me 3 whacks against the head, and then she just disappeared. He drove to a local cafe in Uniondale for help. He could hardly speak when we asked him what had happened, said the cafe owner. But gradually it dawned on us that the woman ghost had appeared once more, she said. Since then a number of unconfirmed sightings have been claimed, all involving a young female hitchhiker standing alongside the lonely stretch of road between Uniondale and Willowmore who was given a lift, then inexplicably disappears. And some have reported car doors opening and closing, laughter, and a chill in the air. The scent of apple blossoms is apparently the only reminder she leaves behind for her stunned drivers. There have also been reports saying that the woman says she wants to go to Porter Street, Twee, DeLang, number 2, Porter Street, but she never stays long enough to reach her destination. While on his honeymoon in 1983, a man had a personal encounter with the hitchhiker ghost. My wife and I stopped next to the road to take a rest. My wife was asleep in the passenger seat. It was late at night and there wasn't the slightest wind. I got out and walked around the car for a wee when a terrible sound like a rushing wind came rolling down the road and went dead quiet as it reached the car. I got the fright of my life and ran back to the driver's side to be met by someone sitting in my seat. I ran back to the other side again to pull my wife from the car as I thought we were being hijacked. But upon wakening my wife, I discovered the other person was gone. We left the spot in a hurry, and about 500 meters down the road we saw this woman in what seemed to be dressed in a gown, waving at us to slow down. I reduced speed in case it was someone in need of help, but before we could reach her she disappeared. I stopped at a garage in Uniondale and told a stranger about my experience, and that was the first time I learned about this ghost. You can imagine the chills that went down my spine. "This is the honest truth," he said. When her fiancé, ironically, died in a car accident in 1984, her ghost apparently stopped appearing. She was finally at peace. According to the residents of Uniondale, her ghost has not been seen for a long time. Perhaps she finally found her way home or reunited with her lover.